All right, go ahead, Chris. Yep.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming. My name is Chris Miller. I'm the state representative for the 101st District and also the chairman of the Illinois Freedom Caucus. Over the past few weeks, it seems like that Illinois politics has new major breaking news headlines every other day. And for the most part, most of these headlines have been, unfortunately, extremely negative. Number one, billions of dollars in projected budget deficits. $3 billion the next year and over $20 billion over the next 5 years. Number two, Governor Pritzker has declared war on the Trump administration, totally ignoring one of the worst performances by Democrats in the last 4 decades in Illinois. Even what has been in the past a deep blue Illinois, President Trump did much better than before and even won the 41st ward in Chicago. The 24 election results show that across the nation and in much of Illinois, the voters have completely rejected what the Democrats were selling. Number three, Governor Pritzker has vowed to protect, quote, his people, unquote. Well, the question is, who are his people? Apparently, the thousands of illegal migrants living on a free ride on tax dollars while working families have watched the cost of food, electricity, fuel, taxes, and fees inflate to record levels. If J.B. Pritzker wants to take on new border czar Tom Homan, my money's going with Homan. Trump's border agency is welcomed by us with open arms to come around and round up the criminals who are here illegally. Number four, another headline is energy costs are out of control. And all this is because of poor public policy. Thank goodness President Trump is ready to drill baby drill and dig baby dig and reject the green bad deal, which is only enabling China to conquer the world and is a complete hoax. Number five, Chicago Mayor Johnson is facing a huge budget hole. A police force that hates him, a school system that is crumbling around him, and a city council that does not respect him. And number six, Governor Pritzker has vowed to make Illinois a safe haven for people who claim to be transgender, and even still defends having transgender and a woke sex education in our elementary schools. The bottom line is J.B. Pritzker and his Illinois Democrats are completely out of touch with what working class families care about. We're calling on this government to grow some common sense, to cut spending, and to give taxpayers some relief, and welcome ICE and border agents into Illinois. The governor needs to understand that Illinois is in no fiscal position to go toe-to-toe with our federal government. And as Tom Homan would say, game on. And with that, I would like to turn this mic over to Leader Holbrook.
Thank you, Leader Chairman Miller, and thank you all for being here today. As Representative Miller has mentioned, and as all of you are aware, in the past couple of weeks, the governor's own office and management and budget has announced budget deficits over $23 billion for the next 5 years, starting with this coming fiscal year over $3.2 billion. Let me say it again, that's $3.2 billion in deficit just in this coming year. We need spending cuts, period. Over the last 5 years under Governor Pritzker, budgets have exploded over 30% or over $13 billion. This vastly outpaces the rate of inflation. Earlier this month, a trial balloon was floated to gauge voter sentiment about taxing millionaires an additional 3% and applying that to property tax relief. This advisory referendum passed by a wide margin of 60-40. This is nothing more than an end run around the failed attempt 2 years ago to change from a flat tax to a graduated tax that was soundly defeated by voters in this great state, and an end run around the Constitution. This irresponsible and out of control spending, these habits in Illinois have led Democrats over the past few years, have gotten us nowhere except billions in illegal immigrant spending, billions in taxpayer-funded subsidies for electrical vehicle companies and their Chinese communists, Democrat legislators voting themselves pay raises, making minimum pension payments and letting our pension debt continue to balloon, continuing to throw money at public education as if it's ever going to solve the problem, funding DEI projects, and fulfilling JB's woke agenda. Folks, this list continues to go on and on. We have a serious problem staring us down like never before. It's like a loaded freight train running downhill and the brakes have failed. Record spending, record borrowing, and record taxing. Growing government at a rate that far exceeds the rate of inflation. Yesterday, during a appropriations panel for new members that I served on, I heard a Democrat member say, as we were talking about the budget process, a tax increase is not on the table right now. Let me be clear, a tax increase should never be on the table. It is a non-starter. The answer is not more revenue, it's less spending. It is making massive cuts to a budget that has more pork in it than meat packing plants all across the state combined. It's eliminating woke spending and shrinking government back to the way that it should be, responsible for the people. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Representative.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, folks, for being with us here today. My name is Adam Niemark, and I represent the 102nd District, and I echo what my colleagues have been saying, namely that the fiscal crisis we're facing next spring is a problem of the governor and the Democrats' own making. One of the main reasons we have such a large budget deficit is the amount of money we're spending on illegal immigrants. Since July 1st, 2022, we have spent a whopping $2.84 billion on services for illegal immigrants. This figure does not include educational costs or various other state and local services we're providing to illegal immigrants. That projected deficit number you've been hearing today is actually less than what our state taxpayers are paying for illegal immigrants. Using tax dollars to pay for services for people who should not be here would be outrageous enough. Even if we could afford to sustain these programs, it's even worse affront on taxpayers that we are doing this at a time we have such a massive budget deficit. We know the incoming Trump administration is vowing to deport these illegals, which is exactly what the American people want. Their vote made this clear 2 weeks ago. We have a mandate. But instead of working with the federal government, J.B. Pritzker plans to work against them. In a recent interview on MSNBC, Governor Pritzker said, "I'm going to do everything that I can to protect our undocumented immigrants. They are residents of our state." If only our governor had the same concern for citizens and taxpayers of this state. The billions of taxpayer dollars J.B. Pritzker and the Democrats have directed towards illegal immigrants is money that could have been spent on programs and services for Illinois citizens. It is money that could be spent to do things like make work zones safer, which is a major problem in my district. The money we are directing to illegal immigrants could easily fund the Invest in Kids program that would help millions of kids escape failing schools. The list of things that are better to use of taxpayer dollars than illegal immigrants could go on for hours. We need to stop spending money on programs and services for illegal immigrants, period. The people of the state have entrusted us with their money, and maybe when Elon Musk is done cutting the fat at the federal level, he can come to Illinois and help us out. But in the meantime, we need to earn the trust placed in us by making responsible choices and spending taxpayer money wisely and efficiently. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to introduce to you the newest member of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, Senator Andrew Chesney.
Thank you. I'm State Senator Andrew Chesney. I represent all parts of 7 counties in northwest Illinois. Last year, as we know, Governor Pritzker raised taxes by approximately $1 billion, at the same time spent well over $1 billion that we can improve on illegal immigrants, or now as he says, his people. Now the governor's own budget has announced an additional $3 billion tax increase or budget deficit that will ultimately lead. The governor is crisscrossing the country, not the state, to run for his 2028 presidential bid. and not serving the people of Illinois. The governor needs to park his jet and focus on the crisis right here in his state. Our president-elect, President Trump, pledged to fix the border that impacts every state in this country. What did Governor Pritzker do? He immediately doubled and tripled down on divisive rhetoric in support of progressive policies that not only worsen the immigration problem that we are experiencing in the state, and it will only get worse with that rhetoric. As ICE follows the directives of President Trump, it is quite likely that illegal immigrants or his people will now flee to this state and make the Midwest, the state of Illinois, the safe haven for illegal immigrants that are now wanting to come here for the Governor Pritzker's protections. Whether Governor Pritzker likes it or not, the new administration is taking over in January. And President Trump, our nation will be put back on a better path that are putting the citizens first. I am calling on the legislature to repeal the Trust Act that was wrongly signed into law under Governor Rauner so that federal immigration officials can work with law enforcement officers across the state. I am also calling on legislators to roll back the progressive policies that cause these bloated budgets, a spike in crime, continuing an exodus in Illinois to other states. Governor, your people are the citizens that elected you. They are not the illegal immigrants that are siphoning off these vital resources to our legal citizens and residents. Thank you.
We can take any questions if anybody has any questions.
Assuming the legislature doesn't repeal the Trust Act, how would Illinois go about, how would ICE work in Illinois with that law still in place on these Trump policies?
We saw, just in the 4 short years that I've been here, the governor pulled out all ICE facilities in the state of Illinois. So that was happening. We were one of the few folks talking about that, the closures of ICE facilities here in the state of Illinois. You saw Sanctuary City in Chicago, you see Sanctuary State in the state of Illinois. To answer your question definitively, I don't think the governor is interested in working with ICE. I think that the new borders are, and the Trump administration is going to have to come in here and get the job done, and quite honestly, it's going to be looking at federal funding. And that's the situation that we find ourselves in, okay? We have a $3.2 billion deficit. We spent over $3 billion on illegal immigration. And Trump is holding the cards right now saying, if you do not cooperate, we'll cut off federal funding. And there's not a tax increase in this state that's going to bail the governor out of this issue. So if he wants to move forward and have this House fiscally sane, which it hasn't been fiscally sane in a very long time, he's going to have to work with the federal immigration authorities and deport these criminals. I mean, we've got a situation where the Laken Riley trial, closing arguments are today. This illegal immigrant was giving a free flight. This guy was given a free flight under our tax dollars under the Biden administration to fly to Georgia. And what did he do? He stalked this college girl, drug her 64 feet into the woods, beat her on the head repeatedly, and murdered her because she wouldn't allow him to rape her. These are the criminals that need to be deported. These are the criminals that this governor is protecting, and the people of this country are fed up and tired of it.
Fitch just put out a report of all states' pension debt. Illinois, second to last. Connecticut's only worse. The total amount they put with the OPEB, the other post-employment benefits, $206.5 billion. That's 22.8 of personal income in Illinois. Is that something that needs to be addressed to shore up long-term liabilities?
Yeah, Greg, I mean, you don't, everything revolves around that in our budget. It's almost 25% of our budget is why our property taxes is a big reason why there's state funding for education. Somewhere near half of that goes directly to those legacy pension costs. So until we fix that going forward, it's going to be really hard to right-size government in Illinois without fixing that. But then when you go to fixing that, you're going to come against some pretty powerful special interests that are pretty entrenched in that system that's worked pretty well for them over the years at the detriment of the taxpayers. So it's a huge problem.
But what does that change look like? What would you
The
prefer
pension
happen?
system?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of things that we could do to it. Number one thing we got to do right now is not make it worse. I mean, there's a huge push going on in Springfield right now that basically make the public sector special interests are rallying here to basically make tier 2 into tier 1, which that's probably hundreds of billions of dollars in additional debt. So not only are we not talking about reform, we're talking about moving in the wrong direction when we're finally getting into a situation where we're getting to the backside of the ramp on that, to where we could see some progress, but as they generally do in Springfield, they make it worse because they're more worried about buying votes than they are protecting the citizens of the state.
You're on the education committee, your thoughts on the Trump administration's pick for the U.S. Department of Education being Linda McMahon. He's already said he wants to close the Department of Ed, send the money back to the states. I asked the governor about it last week. He said that, what's gonna happen with disability funds, those who, go to school and have disabilities, that'll be cut off, he said. Not recognizing the money that Trump says would go back to the states, but, your thoughts on that? I mean, what would that mean for a state like Illinois that's always talking about, $350 million extra a year for education, is a big chunk of money.
How much better is educational outcomes? How much better have we done since they created the Federal Department of Education? Things have gone downhill, and anytime we can eliminate some of the bureaucratic bloat in these systems, it's better. Education is best at a local level. Local people determining what's best for local students, and anytime we can get that closer to home, it's going to be better for everybody. So I'm 100% on board with eliminating the Department of Education. I'm 100% on board with the Trump administration trying to push a school choice initiative on the federal level, since our state won't do it. And the fact that J.B. Pritzker won't do that is absolutely pathetic. That he killed the Invest in Kids deal. He didn't stand up firmly for that. And let's be very clear. There's only one reason that we don't have a robust school choice initiative in the state of Illinois, like they do in almost every other state in the country. It's because of the power of the teachers' unions. It's the power of the teachers' unions and their checkbooks that are funding almost every politician in both parties here. And the fact that J.B. Pritzker, a multi-billionaire who doesn't need their money, doesn't have both the guts and the good sense to stand up for kids and education in this state, an education system that is completely failing, has been failing for generations, is pathetic. We continue to pump billions of dollars into the Chicago public school system, and the rest of the state, and our educational outcomes are declining. This is a issue. No kids should be forced into a subpar education system just based on their income and their zip code. So I'm really excited about what the Trump administration is doing there. Linda McMahon did a great job cutting through the BS of the small business in the last Trump presidency. So we're pretty excited about it.
Experts have said that this election was a message to Democrats that voters don't like the status quo. Obviously, you've made a lot of suggestions from a Republican perspective, but are you looking for some more bipartisanship here? Something that really hasn't been seen except for a few major bills over the past few years. And have you seen some of your Democratic colleagues come and talk to you saying, yeah, there were more Illinoisans voting red this past election?
You're absolutely right. In the few short days that we've been here in this veto session, I've had conversations with several members from the other side of the aisle. They understand. The people have spoken. And you look at the results in Illinois, we're trending towards purple. And there's a message there. And yesterday, when I spoke on the House floor, normally, the Democrats are busy, paying attention to their phones or doing word puzzles or whatever they do. There was a lot of people paying attention yesterday when we talked about the governor needs to stand out. He needs to extend an olive branch. The campaign's over. It's over. Voters have spoken. We're going to have a new administration. It's not going to be the Harris-Walz administration. It's going to be Trump-Vance. And the voters have bought into that, and they have supported it, not just in the electoral college, but for the first time in decades, the popular vote. And it's a bipartisan, huge coalition of new voters that have come to this agenda. And if we don't get on board, if we want to continue to resist, it's going to be just a terrible outcome for this state. And I hope the Democrat majority in the House and the Senate here in the General Assembly will put the brakes on Governor Pritzker and not go along with this. Because all of us, all of our constituents, every one of them are going to suffer. They're going to suffer if we try to buck the government, the United States government. There are over 1 million, I think 1.2 million illegal immigrants that have been given deportation papers, who've gone through the process. They're still in this country. They've already been adjudicated. They need to go. LaShawn Ford spoke 2 weeks ago about the need to get rid of the criminals that are in this country illegally, that are traumatizing, terrorizing neighborhoods in Chicago. He recognizes. So I hope that we see some movement. I hope that we're going to see some folks on the other side of the aisle that are willing to stand up for the taxpayers, their constituents. And let's get on with it, and let's try to figure out how to make this work. Because otherwise, we're in trouble. We're in deep trouble.
Another quick one on budget. I know many of you heard about the hearings this past summer for transit, specifically Chicago and the metro area. Obviously, big fiscal cliff there, but all of you represent areas that need transit upgrades as well. Finally, the final hearing is when we heard from other parts of the state that are concerned about their transit areas. Do you think all that money should be going to Chicago, or should it be evenly distributed to all of your areas as well?
Well, I think there are groups in this General Assembly that will fight for their districts, obviously. And if there's going to be any movement, I would presume that there's going to be a coalition that will support increasing funding for mass transit all across the state. You know, we have the most miles. I represent McLean County. I mean, the amount of miles of the road, Southern Illinois, you know, mass transit is a problem. We've got these little minibuses that drive around and take people to the hospital, to town to buy groceries. You know, we need to invest in our infrastructure. Now, the problem is, you've heard it. We're looking at a fiscal cliff here. Where's the money gonna come from? Who's gonna make that call? Because there's no money. I mean, and it's not like the federal government. We just call the guys up and say, hey, crank it out. We need another $2 billion. We don't have that. And our bonding authority, yeah, it's been upgraded, but we're still the worst bet in the bond market of any state in the nation. And when we get to the point where our interest payments are going to be so big that it's going to cut into the budget in a dramatic way, and that's where we're headed. So, I don't know how you fix Metro. I don't know how you fix the CTA. I don't know how you fix PACE. I don't think combining the three entities into one is the answer. That's just my personal opinion.
President Trump received almost the exact same number of votes this year in Illinois as he did in 2020. Is it fair to say that the Republican Party is becoming more popular in Illinois, or are people just becoming more frustrated with the Democrat Party and sitting out?
I can answer that. I think folks are gravitating towards our message. I think they're tired of going to the grocery store and spending $4 on a gallon of milk, $3 on a dozen eggs. They're tired of seeing, the woke indoctrination in our schools. The teaching our third graders, they can go in and have gender hormone treatment without telling their parents about it. I mean, these are just common sense initiatives. You got to balance your checkbook at home. You got to pay the bills. You have to pay your mortgage. You got to go to the grocery store. You have to raise your kids. And I think the people of Illinois, and moreover the people of this country, have seen what the Democrats have done, especially over the last several years, and how woke it has become. And this is a clear mandate to that ridiculousness that's been going on the last 4 years. So I think that more folks are gravitating towards common sense initiatives. I mean, good grief, we've got we've got men competing in women's sports up and down this country, right? And how is that in any logical world something that we should be doing? A man competing against a woman in sports? It's just these are just common sense initiatives, and I think the people of Illinois gravitated towards this position.
Off-site, there's,
I'll go ahead and answer that real quick. I think to answer your question as well, and Adam did a great job, but the Democrat Party, and specifically J.B. Pritzker and these extremely far left woke progressives, have failed the very groups that they have always said that they 100% support. You know, I was reading the Chicago Tribune yesterday, and there was an op-ed in there about a report from Wallaha for the second straight year. Illinois is ranked dead last in racial equity. Dead last in terms of, you know, these groups that the Democrats and J.B. Pritzker say that they're supporting. Dead last in income, opportunity, everything else. And what word do you hear around here 24/7 on everything, on funding, on every initiative? Equity, equity, equity. We always hear that word, but we don't ever hear opportunity. All right? The policies that they've put in place have put the very people that they say that they're going to support dead last. Dead last. And what's the governor's response to it? No humility whatsoever. In fact, you know, I go on Twitter yesterday, and the governor's chief of staff is on there lobbing personal attacks at the person, the Democrat that wrote that op-ed. Not a word about combating the things that he was saying, how the people that they're supposed to support have less opportunities, how they have no education choice, how they're being put in schools that are failing them. No, they don't address any of that stuff because they're too arrogant and they're too out of touch. They go and lob personal attacks. That's pathetic. That is completely pathetic, and the press and everybody else needs to do their job and go up to the city of Chicago and go into these communities like the Freedom Caucus has and talk to these people, talk to them about their frustration, that they're being made second-class citizens to the illegal immigrants. The J.B. Pritzker is busting in here. You know how. You know, how in the city of Harvey, you know, in South Cook, used to be an industrial powerhouse, but now they're paying 4 times more for their property taxes than they are in Naperville. You know, those are huge problems, and those are huge failures for the Democrat Party on the people that they pledged to support. So they're waking up to that because they're feeling it. They're feeling it in their communities. They're feeling it in their wallets, and they're feeling it with their lack of opportunity. And President Trump and the new Republican Party, the working class Republican Party, the blue collar Republican Party, the people that we represent and where we come from, are putting out a message that is in their favor. And I would say that the rest of the Republican Party better get on board.
off-site, there's labor groups pushing for ending the tipped wage statewide. Your thoughts on that? And the president saying that we should do no tax on tips. Is that a policy Illinois needs to
Seems like a better idea.
mirror? Whoever wants to speak up on that?
You wanna say something? It hasn't proven effective. It's been tried, it doesn't work. The, President Trump has a plan, and I don't know how, you know, it's gotta get through Congress, that we don't tax tips. I'm not sure how that's gonna fly, but, you know, this plan that they pushed last spring is nonsensical, it doesn't work.
The workers don't want it.
Yeah, and the people in the restaurant industry, we sat in committee hearings when they showed up. The workers don't want it. And this is the exact same thing. Here's a quick message. If you're a Democrat, it's not your dad's, your grandpa's Democrat Party.
Sorry.
It's not. The new Democrat Party is not the party of your daily administration. This is the party that you need to stand with. We will stand up for you, the working people of this state. We will make your lives better. Give us an opportunity. We need to reject this woke agenda. I know that there are people in Chicago particularly who vote Democrat because it's a generational thing. But come to your senses, please. It's not your father, your grandfather's Democrat Party anymore. So thank you all for being here.
One last question.
Well, yeah,
Representative
go ahead.
Beamer, you had recently, a corrections facility, about an issue that happened earlier this morning. Representative Flees was there too, talking about, drugs being placed on paper, correspondence and being sent in. Your thoughts on that? Have you gotten anything back from DOC on what they're doing and your insight?
Greg, thanks for asking that question. Yes, 2 weeks ago, I did a tour of the Robinson and Lawrence correctional facilities because there's been an ongoing issue, two issues. One in Lawrence, the safety of our Department of Corrections employees. There's been a few stabbings, so trying to figure out what's going on there. But secondly, there is a situation where in the mailrooms there is drugs that are coming in. They're lacing these pieces of paper with Raid, some kind of bug spray, and then the inmates are getting access to those pieces of paper and then smoking those in the facility. Just when I was in Lawrence 2 weeks ago, I was in a cell block and I could smell this was being smoked actively. And we were told, well, once it reaches a certain threshold, that's where we lock it down. So we have a situation where we have Department of Corrections employees who are getting immune to this, okay? And more importantly, not a lot's being done, okay? I made a request, I was in the mailroom of both facilities. All they need, I talked to the mailroom staff, I talked to local labor, I talked to local AFSCME labor, okay? All they need is a copy machine. A copy machine for the incoming mail to be scanned and copied, and then either that be returned to sender or discarded and the copies be given to the inmates. My request was for those copiers in Lawrence and Robinson facility. I just had a meeting this morning. Again, this was 2 weeks ago, Thursday, that I toured these facilities. I had a meeting with the director of the Department of Corrections this morning. I was given the Springfield two-step. No answers. Representative, we're investigating this. Representative, we're educating our DOC employees about PPE and the proper way to use that. I said, what specifically are you doing to mitigate this? And that was the answer I was getting. We're investigating, we're looking into it. So we have a situation where the Department of Corrections at the top is doing nothing, absolutely nothing to remedy this situation. They're putting the cost of a copy machine ahead of the health and safety of their own employees, and it is unacceptable. So I will be going on this issue very hard. I'm not going to let up the gas on this, and I made that very well known to the Department of Corrections director this morning that this will not be tolerated.
Was that a private meeting or was that a committee hearing?
It was a private meeting. It was a private meeting. But yes, thank you for the question.
Any more questions?
One last one, and Representative Beamer kind of touched on this. Peter Steele recently in an interview indicated that Trump may punish blue states. Similar to what happened with New York approaching bankruptcy, I think like in the 70s or something, and Gerald Ford withheld funds and didn't really help bail them out. Do you think that's what's going to be needed to change the direction in the state when it comes to the economy, the taxation, and a variety of other policies?
Yes.
The Democrat politicians in this state have been punishing the citizens with policies that's pushed us to that brink for a generation. So the president, by withholding anything, would not be punishing Illinois, all right? You know, you don't fix a problem by propping up. What we do in Springfield constantly is we prop up unsustainable systems, okay? And that's why we're in the situation that we're in. So something is going to have to be a catalyst for change, because ultimately we're in the business of doing what's best for the citizens, and maintaining the status quo is not it. So, thank you guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.